Man, the workforce right now, people are getting laid off. There's a lot of people out there in the market looking for jobs, and saying it's a little tough right now to find an
Very.
opportunity. People find themselves taking it personally and really caught off guard. They're not
I
prepared.
think what we're seeing is that the formula has been changing for a while, but now people know the formula has definitely changed. And what I mean by that is, success is when preparation meets opportunity. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Yeah.
But that identifying the opportunity is now becoming the most difficult part. People will tell you, well, just go reskill. Well, right now is reskill to what? Because a lot of the roles are going away. You can't name an industry that is not actively pursuing the expansion of automation, artificial intelligence in their workspaces. And so when we think about owning our careers, we definitely have to. But I think defining what that looks like today and tomorrow is going to be drastically different. Okay, how am I going to adapt to these things changing around me for the outcome that I want for my life and my career?
Man, you know what I've been thinking about a lot about lately is man, the workforce right now, people are getting laid off. There's a lot of people out there in the market looking for jobs, and saying it's a little tough right now to find an
Very.
opportunity. Um, and really, I think if we position ourselves in advance for what's next and always kind of keep our eyes ahead of the target a little bit and prepare ourselves, it lessens the possibility that we might feel caught off guard by a layoff or or anything like that. It's unfortunate, obviously, and ideally we don't want those things to happen, but they do happen.
Yeah.
And then people find themselves taking it personally and really caught off guard. They're not prepared for the gap between when they get laid off and their next opportunity. Some companies, they try to be good about offering support in the way of severance and things like that to help bridge the gap. But that's all about financial preparation as well, right?
Right.
So, what are your thoughts about how people prepare themselves professionally and the intentionality behind how people manage their careers?
Yeah. And first, you're absolutely right. It's tough out there, right? You can't, you know, read online these days without hearing about yet another organization going through a round of layoffs, right? Or hearing from peers or family that they've been impacted. And I think what we're seeing is that the formula has been changing for a while, but now people know the formula has definitely changed. And what I mean by that is what we were all taught: go to school, get good grades, get an education, and you're off
Yeah.
and running. And now that's not even enough. And so, but what I would say that I remind myself about, I remind my family about, and my mentees and my peers and everybody I can is that, and I said this this week on a meeting I was in. When we think about success, success is when preparation meets opportunity, right? Or an old adage: if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Yeah.
But I'm also, you know, realizing, like everyone else, is that identifying the opportunity is now becoming the most difficult part. And
Yeah.
so when we think about the concept over the past few say economic cycles, or things that have changed from the industrial age to the information age becoming more about e-commerce, even the knowledge worker, and people will tell you, well, just go reskill. Well, right now is reskill to what? And so we have to be more intentional about, one, just acknowledging where the world is right now,
Hmm.
and that what we might be hoping it returns to may not come back. Meaning that we can leave one job and go to the next in a similar role because a lot of the roles are going away. Acknowledge the fact that digital transformation has definitely changed the world we live in every respect, from infrastructure to um, the medical field, from legal to chemistry. You can't name an industry that is not actively pursuing the expansion of automation, artificial intelligence in their workspaces. And so when we think about owning our careers, we definitely have to. But I think defining and really acknowledging that what that looks like today and tomorrow is going to be drastically different.
Yeah. And so agility comes to mind, right? And we talk about this a lot in our circles in terms of being prepared to change, adapt on a dime, not being kind of set in your
Mm-hmm.
ways, right? Being willing to be flexible, learn new things, um, to try different approaches and that kind of thing, pivoting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, in terms of the level of agility, how much of that might be generational in terms of
Mm-hmm.
some of the more experienced workers that are in their mid level of their career or maybe on the backside, right? Might have a little bit more trouble with that agility aspect and adapting to all the change,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just adapting, but adapting quickly
Yeah.
because you can take too long and then now you're shooting for a target that's moved, right?
Yeah.
Because you're trailing behind,
Yeah.
and so you really have to be looking ahead at where things are going and
Mm-hmm.
preparing yourself for where you think things are going, which could also change, right?
For sure.
But you do the best you can. So,
Yeah.
how much of this you think might be generational?
I think that's fair. When I think generational too, Jonathan, I think experiential, right? And what I mean by that, if you think about a generation that may be, say, having difficulties accepting the change and the pace of the change that's happening,
Mhm.
it also comes from the fact that, say, during that generation, let's say if there's always been an opportunity to move and figure it out, right? It still feels like there should be a way to figure it out. But what's happening though is it's moving so much faster now
Mhm.
that if you take the example of putting some money in a savings account at 0.12% or whatever it might have been
Mhm.
for 5 years versus realizing that, okay, if I have a goal of this money growing to this point, I can't let this money sit here for 5 years. It needs to be in a different vehicle, right? And you can acknowledge it, but if you acknowledge it and don't move it,
Mhm.
you're going to be at the same place, not even the same place, actually. You're going to be further behind 5 years from now when you look at that account than you would if you acknowledge it on 6 months after. I mean, if you moved it 6 months after you acknowledge it, or even a year or 2 years, right? And so I think we're seeing a lot of that too when you talk about some of the generations or just people who um, have not embraced the fact that things are changing and saying, okay, how am I going to adapt to these things changing around me for the outcome that I want for my life and my career?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think part of this too could be life stage because
Absolutely.
think about it.
Absolutely.
Think about it. Like when you're early career, right? You're on the front end. You're probably willing to move around
Mm-hmm.
a lot more. So if
That's
you
fair.
if you translate that and you call that agility, I think it's just kind of you're exploring and you're still
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure things out, right?
Yeah.
Not too attached to any one place.
Yeah.
Then you might get married and have a family, right?
Yeah.
And now you need stability.
Yeah.
So maybe you tend to look for a place where you can stay longer
Yeah.
once you settle down and you
Yeah.
start to build a family, right? And then as your family matures and your kids get ready to go to college and that thing, and you start moving toward your empty
Mm-hmm.
nester years,
Mm-hmm.
bouncing around from company to company might not be something that you're really interested in doing at that stage of life.
Yeah.
So part of it could be generational, part of it could be life stage. What are your
True.
thoughts on that?
I totally agree because especially when you introduce the responsibilities that come with family, stability becomes a big part of that, whether that's financial stability, mental stability, spiritual stability, because making those life changes career wise is risky, right? You're talking about moving your skill set and your relationships and your brand that you built one place to somewhere else and having to redo that all over again.
Yeah.
Talking about, in an environment by which relationships matter, quite honestly, you're now hoping that your skill set alone can speak for you. And that's becoming, I think, my personal opinion, less and less the case.
Yeah.
It's more advantageous for you to, if you're moving somewhere, to move somewhere where you've got a sponsor or someone that's really vying for you going in, right? If you have the opportunity. But life stage is absolutely true. And I can give an example if I have a minute, in even a point in my career where that was definitely true. Right? Can I have your permission to tell you a quick story?
Sure. Go ahead.
So early in my career, to your exact point, I used to travel a lot for work. Right? Um, my now wife, who at the beginning of my career was my fiance at the time, and the first say 5-7 years of my career, I used to get on a plane Monday morning, come home on Thursday night. But as we were planning for the next phase of our life, which included children, it was always a decision that traveling would not be a part of that equation, especially when they were young, because we had a life plan that we wanted to be very engaged, both of us, in those early years. So the moment we found out my wife was pregnant, I started looking for an opportunity to come off the road and not have to travel. Right. So to your point about life stage, that was it. And I knew that meant that I was moving off of, let's say, a fast track, if all went well, to a very financially rewarding career.
Mm-hmm.
But that had to go on pause for the point in my life that I wanted.
Yeah.
And even when I made that transition, the idea of moving again anytime soon was not even on the table. It didn't even cross my mind. I knew that we had twins, by the way. We had two young ones. And so a big part of the next 5 years before they got into, let's say, kindergarten or preschool or pre-K or what have you, was making sure that we were financially stable. We weren't moving around. We had the opportunity for us both to be in their lives in a very specific way that we wanted to. And that was the most important thing. And so life stage is very true. Could you miss some opportunities because of that? Absolutely. But the thing I will point out, though, and hopefully we'll get here too on some of this, is what's the lifestyle you want? What's the outcome you desire? And then designing your career pathing and the opportunities you seek around that.
Yeah.
So, and I can dig more into what I mean by that, but I think sometimes we end up chasing what we think we want because we haven't really clearly identified the outcome we want.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And I would say a lot of what people end up doing professionally almost happens by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we become subject to circumstance and what's happened to us based on demands, right?
Yeah.
Like life demands. You graduate college, you need a job. What's the quickest thing available? Got to make money quickly, right? Certain circumstances, we talked about having a family, kids, responsibilities might lead you to choose something you normally would not have if you don't have a financial nest egg set aside. It could change the choice that you make as well, right? Or you're comparing to what you're seeing online.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at other people's Instagram feeds, Facebook, or whatever.
Or like they say, looking at everybody's highlights,
everybody's highlight reel. Yeah. And now, you're making decisions based on how you want to come off to other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So status oriented, trying to keep up with the Joneses, what your parents said you should do.
Yeah.
All those things factor into people's choices about career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then they find themselves 10, 15, 20 years into a career.
Yeah.
And then they figure out, I don't really want this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And now what do I do? Because to your point, you mentioned earlier about the desire to leverage the work that you put in and the knowledge you built in the profession you're in.
Yeah.
When you spent a lot of time building yourself up in a profession, you want to reap the rewards of what you've been building.
Yeah.
And pivoting could seem like starting from scratch and going backwards.
Yeah.
So I think that could slow people down from pivoting. What do you think?
I think so. I'm going to touch on something real quick, and I would ask you a question, but I know you're going to flip it back on me. But when we talk about life stage, I think there's another critical one. But the older I get, the more I can appreciate this, right? Which is, you heard the old phrase, so-and-so's hit a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Well, I've started to look at that now as well. When you hit that midlife awareness, things
Hmm.
change. Because, and what I mean by that is you get to a point where you realize that, let's say if it happens at 40, people like to pick 40. And man, I've been in working for 20 some years, right? Let's say, or if you started at 15, 25, you know, how long you've been working, that this isn't what I thought it would be. And I've been spending so much time chasing this thing. If I keep doing this for another 5 or 10 years, I'm now going to be 50 and still no farther than I am now.
Hmm.
And not only that, I'm going to be missing the best years of my life.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes that life stage really awakens a lot of people, myself included,
Yeah.
to really redefine, how do I want to spend the next decade of my life?
Yeah.
And then you start backing up to say, okay, well, how do I want to spend, quite honestly, the next year of my life,
Yeah.
the next month of my life, the next week of my life, the next day of my life, the next hour, minute, etc.
Hmm.
Because you start to realize, and I'm not sure about you, it feels like once I cross 40, the clock sped up.
Yeah.
It just feels like the clock sped up. You know, you watch your children grow right in front of your eyes. You know, you see your parents age or enter retirement. You see your grandparents, if you're blessed enough to still have them in your life at that point. You get to see that stage of their life, and unfortunately, you also start to experience loss in friend circles, friends of friends, and family at a frequent pace, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like every week you're hearing that somebody has gone along, has moved on.
Yeah.
It starts to really put things in perspective.
Yep.
So I say that to say, when you think about bringing that back to owning your career or owning what you want to focus on, and quite honestly, you start to really look at, well, what is the purpose of having your career for you? Is it for individual recognition or reaching individual goals? Is it to have an impact and influence on community?
Yeah.
Is it to have, quite honestly, and I think for a lot of us, a lot of people, is it to provide specifically for your direct, core family? And if that's the case, the name on the paycheck is almost irrelevant, right?
Hmm.
It is almost irrelevant. And so if you look at, again, if you sit down and I try to do this every year, sometimes every other year, is like revisit what's your lifestyle design is what I think it's called. How do you want to live? Who do you want to spend time with? If you love traveling, how often and how do you want to travel?
Yeah.
If you have hobbies, quite honestly, me, I have some hobbies. You know, how often do you want to enjoy those hobbies? And be really honest about what you want and need. Because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently over dinner that has gone through some ups and downs in this economy, and is in one of the down cycles, but on the way back up, because I know he'll get back up, is say, hey, take a minute and write down really why you're chasing that journey in that business. Like, what, at the end of the day, what was it that you were hoping to get out of that?
Yeah.
And what, quite honestly, if you're honest with yourself, to do what you want to do each year, what honestly do you need? And do you need to put in the work rebuilding that business to get there?
Yeah.
And is the business what is the business? And I didn't say this to him, and I didn't even mean it this way, but now that I'm thinking about it, is because I'm reading a lot about ego and trying to challenge, myself to make sure that I'm not operating from ego and operating from a place of purpose. Is it to say that you are an entrepreneur and you run this big company that you're building, or is it to provide an income to sustain the lifestyle that you design?
Yeah.
And that's to me, it can be so different for so many people.
Yeah.
And the older I get, I like to say I'm a country boy from North Carolina at heart. When I
Yeah.
look back at where I grew up and when I go back, man, it's so peaceful, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different levels of success, and I love it. But the one thing sometimes when I talk to people, even now to this day, and I love having different stories to look at, is when you think about lifestyle design, a lot of it becomes very peaceful, that you can actually achieve it when you look at your own plan and not look at everybody else's highlights, right? To
Hmm.
me, the ones that have been able to truly um, reach the level of success, lifestyle, and peace that they want is because of that reason, right?
Yeah.
They really lock in on the lifestyle they want to live, and how they want to live it now, but also making sure that it's sustainable for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, like when you start to talk about purpose, because
Yeah.
you know, if I'm talking to somebody that I'm coaching, one of the first things that we have to do is get clarity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And purpose is part of that clarity in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what are you looking for? What is the life that you're looking to create? And that's
Mm-hmm.
what you were hitting on, right?
Right.
Getting back to when you talked about North Carolina and how it made you feel. Now
Yeah.
you're thinking about what is the quality of life that I'm seeking
Yep.
and what will get me there, right?
Yeah.
What does where does my career fit into that?
Yeah.
And what profession would make the most sense for where I am right now?
Mm-hmm.
And also looking at obviously you got to look at your skill set.
Yeah.
You got to look at what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So it's with passions, your skills, your and gifts, right? What's your value set,
Mm-hmm.
your value system, and you want to make sure you're in a profession and work for an employer that aligns with your values.
Yeah.
That can affect industry, employer,
Yeah.
different choices along that. But
Yeah.
all of what we're talking about involves us a lot of intentionality.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about this, what's missing from a lot of people's career planning and
Mm-hmm.
approach to lifestyle design, as you say, which career is just one component of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, if you get too focused on one or the other, then you miss the picture, right? You have to look at everything holistically in totality and then see how the puzzle pieces fit together because the profession that you might choose
Mm-hmm.
might create a lifestyle professionally that doesn't align with your personal desire of
Yeah.
lifestyle. How often
Oh,
does that happen?
how about this, right? The profession that you choose may not choose you. It just might be a mismatch, right? And I think sometimes also maybe generationally or culturally, you know, changing can be seen as giving up, right? And the ego doesn't want you to give up. No, we're going to make this work. Now, you're going to see how good I am at this, even though it's taking me way more energy to do this thing, right? That hasn't chose me. That if I would just allow myself to spend the time to do the introspection to figure out where I best fit, and even if that meant taking a detour to
Mhm.
get there and figure and realize that it takes a lot less energy, right? And I make a lot more money, or my lifestyle is a lot closer to what I have in my mind for my design.
Mhm.
Um, when I actually connect to what does choose me, right? And
Yeah.
again, sometimes it goes to to watching people's highlights or hearing what sounds, sexy and interesting to say that I am a fill in the blank, um, versus, you know, man, this is what I love to do and I'm passionate about this, right? You know, um, yeah,
Yeah.
pick a career, but I think the older I get and the more we evaluate, my wife and I evaluate our lifestyle design and who we are as people now in our 40s, um, what we want to have and what we want to demonstrate for our kids and our nieces and our nephews and anybody that we interact and touch in terms of what's possible and how we do that, you end up revisiting and realizing that, hey, I've put a lot of way too much accountability on the name on my paycheck than even on myself, right?
Yeah.
And when you realize that and realize that, um, oftentimes, some people are lucky, but oftentimes that feeling you get when you're locked in and doing something that's aligned with your purpose, whether it's for compensation or not, oftentimes we don't actually achieve that through our employer, right? And when you realize that and you acknowledge that this is for a purpose, right? This is what this relationship with my employer or my business, even if I'm an entrepreneur, right? Because not every entrepreneur is in an industry doing a thing because they are passionate about that thing, right? But that allows them to achieve an outcome, right?
Yeah.
Or it connects with a lifestyle design that they have. And so they know that in order they put it through, they put that business or they put that career or that job in the right perspective.
Yeah. 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 That's a part of it too. And
Yeah,
it depends on who you are.
absolutely.
You just have to be clear on who you are and what's important to you and what your values are,
Yeah.
your passion can be your profession, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It might not. Your profession might be a means to your passion.
At bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. So your passion might be something outside of the actual job, but your job gives you the means to pursue that, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.